1920 Chicago. I really learned economics. As Tom said, I went to University of Chicago for graduate school. I did go to Northwestern undergraduate. I was an analyst for First Chicago for 2 years. I saw 50 companies across the United States. I've seen pork processing, I've seen turbine manufacture, I've seen steel rolling, steel mills. St. Louis steel mill I used to come and audit. But my real education in economics came from my kitchen table. My family came to this country in the 1920s. This is 1920 Chicago. And my great-grandma Eva and my great-grandfather Boris came to this country with nothing in the 1920s. And great-grandpa Boris used to get a roll of fabric, a bolt of cloth. And he would go door to door and he would sell pieces of that cloth to the women in the neighborhood. They would use the cloth to make aprons, dresses, rags. And this was how they started in business. And soon great-grandfather Boris said, we need to make aprons too. We can make aprons. We can sell aprons door to door, and we can make more of a profit. And with that, great-grandpa Boris and great-grandma Eva bought a pair of scissors made out of iron that hang in our house today as a reminder. And they'd stay up at night and cut patterns to dresses and sew the dresses. And during the day, great-grandpa would sell them door to door. Soon they got a loft and another person to help them. And they got some more customers and some more seamstresses, and they started making more and more dresses. They started a company called Boris Smoller & Sons, which was then passed to my grandfather. And my grandfather had 2 daughters. My father was one of the, my father married my mother, and he went to work for my grandfather, and he ended up taking over the company in the 1970s. So while that was happening, we saw labor unions, the rise and fall of the domestic and workers. Does anyone remember the look for the union label? The great look for the, yeah, well, that union put a lot of pressure on my father. And that union demanded quite a bit from my father, and watching him struggle with the unions, watching how he had to deal with the foreign competition, talking every night at the dinner table and listening to what was happening, I think gave me a much better understanding than University of Chicago ever did about what really happens. This is a sewing room floor. This is what my father's company in the 1970s had over 1,000 employees and 5 factories. This is a sewing floor in Asia where you'll see rooms the size of football fields filled with people sewing. These people are willing to work for pennies an hour. How could they do that? To steal our jobs. Except the alternative for these people was to work in the fields, to pick rice, stand knee-deep in water with snakes and mosquitoes. Instead, they had the opportunity to work in a large factory next to their brothers, next to their sisters, quietly sewing clothes all day, clean, safe. It's no wonder they wanted these jobs. It's no wonder we've seen the labor move around the world at such an alarming speed. As the world has gone from an agricultural society to an industrial society, there are dramatic changes taking place, and we all should be aware of them.